Islam family? This your brother, your friend, it's Marshall, aka Smell. I'm here. I just want to again get on. This is Talk Bills, where we just talk and bill. So anything that's said, please just in the comments, build on, and let's continue the conversation. Today, I want to talk about what is a state. What is a state? And we'll be coming from, or I will be coming from a book called Social Civics. This is by Munro, Kennelly, and McCarthy. And shouts out to, I believe it was, what is his name? Some stuff that were really big about this particular book, and it's a very great book. If you get your hands on it, I highly recommend it. Honors to all, honors to Prophet Noble Drew Ali, honors to all, everything Moorish, honors to you, wherever you are, wherever you're coming from on this platform to hear this conversation. So let's get into it. I'm just going to kind of read here, and this is coming from chapter 3, and it says here that to have a state, it's you need 3 essential things. That is 1, a territory, 2, a population, and 3, a political organization to have a state. Now, this is according to modern day European standards, right? So it says here, the simple definition is a state is a body of people possessing a definite territory and political organization. A state must have 3 essentials. First, territory is essential. The Polish people of several generations did not constitute a state because they had no territory of their own. Their country was divided among Russian, Austria, and Germany, but the Polish homeland was given back to the Poles after World War I by the treaties of Versailles. And Poland at that time regained her status as a European state from this treaty. So here is showing Poland, they were a people, they had people, but they had no territory. So through a treaty, right, they gained territory, and therefore they became a state. I would imagine they had the political components, meaning they had some type of political orchestration that all they needed was to get back their land. I guess if you're depossessed of land, you don't have a state. Now that's interesting in itself, but I may kind of disagree with that. But however, by European rule, right, modern day European rule, that's the context that we're speaking of, since that's what we're dealing with as rulers and powers of the United States Empire, right? So the other thing is population. It says population is a second essential. The territory within the Antarctic does not form a state because it is uninhabited except by explorers. So it's trying to say that the Antarctica cannot be considered a state because there's nobody there. However, I believe uh, it may be claimed by several countries, certain parts of that landmass there. I could be wrong about that. But however, population is the other. Political organization. A government uh, a government is a third essential. The territory which is now the United States did not form one unified state before the first European settlers reached it. It was inhabited by natives who had various tribal forms of government. The League of the Five Nations of the Iroquois, a ruling council of the five Iroquois tribes, was one such organized. However, there was no larger governing body uniting the various tribes under common law and a common system of government. And a state as Europeans understood the term did not exist. Well, that's kind of, I think, conflicting what they're saying. They did have a tribe. They did have a league, right, of nations. So they kind of, just trying to excuse themselves for how they treated really the Moors, the Moorish empires. As we know, they purchased Florida from who? Somebody. Spain, right? They purchased Louisiana area from who? What? France. The French. And if you connect those two countries, they go back to the areas and rule that the Moors ruled, right? So, and why did they have treaties to seek from the Moors of Morocco to even allow their ships to come to the shore? So you could see that even within this context here, this a side note is showing you how there are connections that the Moorish Empire was in place here in the Americas, as they're even trying to side note. But let's talk about it. So a state, three things, right? And so that's territory again, population, and your political organization. So Noble Drew Ali had that in place where he was bringing the so-called black, Negro, Ethiopian, the mental enslaved, bringing them out of a misnomer, of a marking that is a nobody into the fold of a nation. And so during the early 20s, of course, they would have had, from my understanding, territory, meaning they had, from my understanding, blocks and business, they owned property, and they had populations. From my understanding, they had a large population during his time when he was in place, and they certainly had a political organization in place. And so when you have a state, right, then you have abilities to move and have certain protections, right, that you would not have as an individual or a small group per se, So now today, where are we today? Of course, in this physical, the prophet is dead. Where are we now with a lot of the splits with the Moorish Science Temple? Territory is an issue. population is an issue. And even the third wing, political organization is an issue. Even if you look over the mass, the overview of the so-called African American, where is our umbrella of things? I think as it relates to being a state or having a nation of people, we do have the population. And I would say we're scattered, but in certain situations, we do even have the territory. There are certain cities, for example, I believe Jackson, Mississippi, Atlanta, where we dominate in population. Political wings, I think that is questionable. We're kind of scattered. We got different groups and so forth. But just like the indictment against the Iroquois tribe that this book was trying to say is that they did not have a larger government that governed the segments of the groups. And so in the Moorish Science Temple of America, the prophet had set up what they call a Supreme Grand Council, right? That was like the federal government within the Moorish Science Temple. In the same way, couldn't there be something established? I believe some brothers have been working on that, where you have, even though we have a lot of the splits within the Moorish Science Temple, where you could have a joint council among the various segments of the Moorish Science Temples, where you have a Supreme Grand Council come together where they can make common law among the segments, even though just like now, Florida have some laws of their own, Georgia have their different laws, Texas have their different laws, but there is still overall a common law. That could be developed and formed, but I think the problem would come in with that is that the actual individual segments, maybe politically, they're not as strong enough, and population are not strong enough, and certainly territory. From my understanding, a lot of our people, we don't even have our own buildings to hold our services in. So those are very problematic issues in trying to develop a state in this time and day. The same likeness with the overall view with the African American. If you look, if we had some type of group, right, or just a spearhead, a federal-like spearhead, a governing spearhead to govern all, that was made up of many segments to govern movement of the African American. So whether you are in, the Marcus Garvey movement, whether you are Nation of Islam, whether you are Moorish Science Temple of America, whether you are Hebrew Israelites, whether you are Kemetic, whether you are Christian, whether you are Muslim, whether you are whatever faith, whatever belief, whatever, you had some type of grand body that could represent segments, and that through that grand body, a larger common law was made. That could very well maybe bring our people in a more political force and bring us some resolution today. I think the problem with that is that our the African American today wants to be so inclusive. They don't want to feel like if we do something by ourselves, that means for some reason there's an indictment that we hate everybody else, or we don't want to get along with everybody else, even though all other nations do this. I heard something even on the social media. I think it was Brother Ben. He put up a clip of one of the brothers talking about how that we're already segregated. If you go down to Chinatown in New York, you see their language. You see them shopping among themselves, and you see various towns have these Chinatowns and German towns and the Jamaicans and so forth. But so if we're already segregated, nobody's putting an indictment on them saying that they're trying to be inclusive and saying that they only want to do for themselves. There's no reason why our people have to feel the same way. But for some reason, I know we know the reason. The Moors know the reason, because of mental slavery. It was instilled in us that we could not come together and do something on our own. That was if a group were caught talking and planning, that was deadly. That was deadly. And so it's these mental slaveries and these outlooks that a lot of times unknowingly are preventing us from moving in the right direction. But I think that possibly, it's a long stretch, but that possibly could be a solution in trying to politically organize ourselves, informing ourselves, and preparing ourselves for state-like movements. Without that, the other best thing, family, is to know how to move for yourself within the government that we have now. That is United States government. Knowing how to move within the government that you have now. So knowing, like, if you're dealing with a nation of people, even though they're not displaying the nation, but if you're dealing with a nation of people, you have to understand that being unsaid is a national code going on. Whether you recognize it or is it being spoken or not, it is going on. Because a population of people, right, other than the slave, they have cultures, they have political biases, and they have political goals as a people. And so these type of things are good to know as you are moving among them. If you have a product, if you have a program, or something that can bless humanity in general, these nations may, they may want to deal with you. They may want to trade with you. They may want to barter with you. And so these could be great things that you can use for your benefit for you and your family if you know the civics of a state. And when you know you're dealing with a state, even though you may not have one yourself. So, this is Talk Bills. Let me know what you think about what a state is and how our people can best move in a direction of developing a state. And if that is so far away from us right now, how can this type of information help you or help the next man move and generate income and be self-sufficient for himself and his family? How can this information help him achieve those goals? So that's all I have, family. I hope there's something in here that I said that you like, that you could take and build on. Certainly, I would love to hear your comments and like to hear what your input, your build on it. So drop some comments down below, share it, and let's build. Let's talk about it. Okay? So other than that, I'll see y'all on the next one. See you in the wind.